Hello, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the 6 pros and cons of buying a business rather than starting a business. It's interesting because I took such a long break that I lost some of my good habits from being on doing live every day, but I've improved some things. I'm getting back into the swing of it. And it's interesting to know like what was natural and normal for me before going live frequently. Now I'm having to kind of think through things a little bit more, a little less automated, a little more challenging. Um, Today, we're going to talk about the 6 pros and cons, and I really want you to take a look at this and think about how you can build your business by buying it instead of starting it. Now, there's some argument to be made that acquiring, like a competitor, is a great way to go as well. Now, we're not going to talk about that in this video. We are going to talk about that at a future video. But I wanted you to think about those things because they apply certainly in a way to grow your business as well in that context if you're already an established business owner. If you're not an already established business owner, so you're getting started for the first time, it's valuable to think about these things because there isn't one way to entrepreneurship. And when you start thinking it in context of your end goal is to do what, and it's going to be different for each person. But if your end goal is to do X, then it doesn't really matter how you get there so much as that you get there. So sometimes it means maybe you are going to start a business from the beginning. Maybe you're going to buy a business. You're going to find a way to buy a business. You're going to borrow from somebody to get the money to do it, and then you're going to take out a loan and so on and so forth. But we're going to get into that in just a little bit. If you're new here, my name is Taylor Darcy from Think Legal, where I help you create the business of your dreams. So welcome. I'm excited to have you. I try to go live every Monday through Friday, so weekdays except for holidays at 11 a.m. So join me to get your questions answered. Tune in if you just want to hang out and want to get to know me. I'm here to help you with your entrepreneurship and your building your business in whatever capacity that may be. So keep that in mind, is that I'm here to help no matter what it may be. So let's get started. All right. So part of that is when you put it in context of legal and doing it the right way, then you're going to have a much better time of it than people that are trying to just put it together and, throw it together, put a little, spit on it and hope for the best. One of the big things that I see a lot with small businesses is they don't plan. They have great ideas, but they don't plan. And so what can make or break you is not planning, honestly. Now, that isn't to say that planning is the end all be all. I'm not saying you plan till you die and then you never do anything. You need to balance done is better than perfect, right? So you need to work on the things that are going to take you to the next level and be successful and be able to give you what you're looking for. So you want to make sure that you're planning, but you're not so rigid in your plan that you're not obtaining your goals. So let's get started into the pros and cons. We're going to start with the cons first because I really want you to understand that it's not perfect, that nothing is. So you pick which is better for you. So keep those types of thoughts in mind. So the number one con is going to be that the existing employees or the existing people aren't going to like change, okay? And they're going to say, it's the way we've always done it. And so you're going to have some struggle with getting some pushback on people's decisions to do the right thing. A lot of times, if you come in and you're a benevolent benefactor, then you're going to have a much better time of it than people that are trying to come in as a dictator. Okay. So you want to keep that in mind, is that your management style and your ownership style is going to be crucial in making a successful acquisition, no matter what it is. In fact, most businesses that acquire another business or individuals that acquire another business fail not because the product or the idea is bad, but because they don't get everyone on board with it and they don't show them the benefits of buying the business. And so you'll lose a lot of that talent capital that established business already has. In fact, that's true of most mergers and acquisitions. So you're left with, is the assets and the customer list, is that worth what you just paid for it? And a lot of times that might not be true. So you've got to be careful. You've got to manage your business differently than it would be if you're starting out from fresh. Now, and sometimes that's a good thing, right? Sometimes you need to shake off the rust. You need to get rid of people that are anchoring you or weighing you down in your pursuit of your goals. So sometimes that's good, but you don't want to throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater by not acquiescing to certain things and demands when you're dealing with people's livelihoods. So that's number one. You're going to deal with, it's the way we've always done it. The next thing is that when you buy a business, there is going to be more cash up front than if you are doing it starting out. You can bootstrap and just start out with very little money. It is so much less expensive to start out as a startup than it is to start out as with buying a business. And that has a lot to do with the person that's buying or that's selling the business is going to want to get good money for their work, and rightfully so, right? No denying that that's true, that you want to make sure that you're getting good value. And we'll talk about selling your business at a different day coming up. We are going to discuss those things. So buying a business, it is going to cost more, but it doesn't have to cost more as much as you might think it is. You don't necessarily have to come up with all of the money up front, but you are going to have come up with more than what you would if it was a straight up sale or a straight up startup. So the next thing is that you may have to deal with, if an owner has done it the way that they've always done it, and that's just who they are, and this happens a lot, you're going to potentially have to be buying all new equipment. Because the old stuff isn't going to give you the same opportunity as the new stuff. And that comes a lot from thinking about it from, if you're going to improve the business to become more profitable, then you're going to want to make sure that you're bringing that to the table as part of the thing. So you're going to want to include that in your acquisition costs. Is how much is it going to cost to upgrade your equipment? So that's an additional expense. Can you get by with your previous equipment? Maybe. Depends on the equipment, depends on what you're looking for and what type of business it is. If it's, a machine shop, which, I'm not suggesting that's good or bad. I'm just saying, if it's a machine shop, then you are probably going to have a fairly high amount of capital needed to buy new equipment, because it may not be as efficient as the old equipment. And that's really where you're going to win on an acquisition. So that's number three, sorry. It is more difficult of a legal process especially for sole proprietors, because you're adding, it's not just acquiring the LLC, it's a simple membership interest that goes into it, or corporation with shareholder interest. It's acquiring all of the equipment. It's putting it in an LLC. Hopefully you're going to start out that way. And I say that because some people do, some people don't. I generally recommend that if you're going to be buying a business, it's better to get that established into an LLC or a corporation. We talked about those in different videos, but just keep that in mind, rather than going sole proprietor to sole proprietor, because then you run the same issues with sole proprietors from one proverbial generation to the next. And so you really want to avoid that. So, but it is a little more difficult legal process because you have to get all of these equipment, the titles, everything into the new company's name, whatever that may be. Now, and we're not going to go a ton into the legal stuff, but I just want you to be aware of it, that it's going to be more costly because there's a lot more work with sole proprietor acquisition than it is to acquire an LLC. Now, there's always going to be due diligence that needs to be done. Needs to make sure your contracts are up to date. You're moving everything over into this new contract arena. So there is a bit of work no matter what you do. It's just, there is. And you want to make sure everything gets done in writing. At the end of the day, that's going to save you if there's ever an issue. So that's the next thing. The number 5 is you may, and this kind of comes back to number 1, but you may actually lose key employees because of differences in management. There's going to be a conflict, and the better you deal with that conflict, the happier that your new employees are going to be, or old employees, as the case may be, new to you. And so there's going to be, you're going to want to develop those relationships. You're going to want to take the time to get to know the people best so that you can retain that type of talent. And if you've never owned a business before, one of the very crucial things to do is to make sure you're getting buy-in from these people that have been working there for a long period of time, because you want them to stay. There's nothing more frustrating than acquiring a business only to have all of the staff leave, and all you're left with is the equipment and the customer list, which is valuable. It's very good. You want to keep that. You want to have the money. You want to make sure that that's there. But your real cost, is that tribal knowledge, that experience that goes with the people that have been there the longest. So I'm not suggesting that you have to do anything you shouldn't do. I'm not suggesting that you become somebody you're not. But don't take the my way or highway approach, even though you're the new owner at the beginning. After you've gotten to know them, after you've established this relationship, if there's improvements to be made, it's important to address them. It's important to move your business forward. Absolutely, by all means. But the real key is that you want to make sure you're doing it with the intent of keeping those people for as long as possible. Can you 100% guarantee that they're going to stay? No, that's the reality. They can say, you know what, I want to retire now. I'm done. And that's part of the process of making sure and going through this process to make sure it's a good fit for you. So keep that in mind, is that that is a con to it, right? I mean, you could pay all this money to get this business, and then you have to hire all new talent, and that's damaging. That's difficult to deal with. Okay. If you want to rebrand it, okay, there is going to be a cost with that, and it's going to be both money and time. And so you're going to want to make sure that you are prepared for that, and you're prepared for customer potential pushback. They typically, most people don't change unless they have a reason to. So don't give them a reason to change. It's, in my recommendation, it's always better to keep that brand the same for quite some time after, so that they can have it established for a period of time that you're the new owner and that the brand is staying the same. And people don't like change. Okay, just be bluntly honest with you. And so the less you can change that negatively affects the customer, the better. If you're talking about changing so that things are faster, better, more productive, sure, customers like that. And so that's why you've got to be really careful on what you're changing, how you're changing, and keep in mind the human factor. You can automate a lot, but if you can't automate everything, and you shouldn't. You should focus on building those relationships with those customers, because sometimes they can have some really great ideas on how to build your business for you. And if you're building a business from scratch, that comes natively. But if you're building a business from a buy, then you've almost got to have that consumer input into your business to take it to that next level, to really grow that into that next step. So that's number 6. Those are the cons. I always like ending with the videos. I always like ending with the pros, because ending on a high note tends to work better in my opinion. So the next thing is, so for a pro, I should say, and this is the best one, let me just tell you, it's awesome. The number one thing is, or at least the first thing to talk about, is that you're up and running quickly. You've got an established revenue stream. presumably this is a business that's been in business for a while, right? 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, even better. The longer they've been in business, the better you're going to do. So when you're up and running quickly, you're not dealing with the inconsistent cash flow that comes from the starting a business, right? I mean, starting a business is scary and difficult, and absolutely mad props to you. I, started my own business. I've helped start many different businesses. So it's because it's an already established revenue, you're not walking into it with, okay, how am I going to pay the bills next month? You already have that. You just don't, it's just up to you not to screw it up, right? So that's a really great function of buying a business over starting a business. So the next part is it's an established business model, and it's kind of up and running quickly, but it's more to the point of if they've been in business for 10 years, it's likely they're not going anywhere, right? So you're able, 10 years or more, right? I mean, could be more, even more than that. You can be up and running in no time if you are, and because it's established, you've got a lot to work with. You can do so many things that you can't do at a startup phase of a business. And so you really want to focus on having that established business model that are. And here's an interesting statistic. I don't generally like statistics, but in the context of trying to push you in a direction, but the average startup fails at about or succeeds at about a 25%. So that means a 75% failure rate, right? Approximately. A established business, or if you're acquiring a business, is the success rate is 98%. You've basically tripled your likeliness of success when you acquire a business because of these reasons that we've talked about. Okay. That's a dang great reason to acquire a business over buying a business, over starting a business. 98% success rate, you're more likely than not to succeed. That's awesome, right? You can't beat that number. And I can't tell you that, that you won't succeed at that, but or that you absolutely will, because there is a 2% failure rate, but you're giving yourself a better chance at it. So your money is a better investment in a bought business than it is in a startup business. Well, what if I spend the same amount of money? Yeah, except for you don't have that recurring revenue. You're having to fight some things like we talked about in the cons. So you've got to keep those types of things in mind. The next one, and this is a crucial one, because if you invest you can get a quicker return on your investment in a business that you buy over a business that you start. Again, not dissing startups. Each person has their own flavor on what they want to do. I wanted to start my own business and help others who start their own business because that's what works for me. Would I acquire other law firms? Absolutely. If I'm able to. I wouldn't do it at this moment because I need to continue building my own firm. But I would absolutely acquire other law firms for the sake of building my business. But I wanted to start my own business. I didn't want to do it the way somebody else had done it. So that was important to me. Plus, I didn't have a lot of capital to work with. So for me, starting was a better option than trying to buy. The next thing, and this is pretty huge. Okay, this is probably one of these are all top reasons, but one of the best reasons to buy instead of start is you get access to the SBA loans a lot faster, like insanely faster. Like you could finance the buy of that business via an SBA loan. So rather than having to come up with $1 million to buy a business, you could come up with 10%. So we're talking $100,000 to buy that business and then use the SBA loan to finance the rest of it. And you're paying that back because you've got the revenue that's already kicked in to manage that business. You see how this is kind of like an awesome scenario versus if you took that same $100,000 and put it into a startup, that may or may not return that money. And it's going to be years before the SBA will talk to you. Like anybody that's been in business for any period of time. I think it's funny that it's the Small Business Administration, and it is so hard to get a loan from them, knowing that it's SBA. Like, it blows my mind how hard it is to get a loan from them. They are not easy. And I get it's part because it's government, but I also get it's part because it's, businesses do fail. But they make it so hard to get loans that when businesses really need them for extra capital to work through things, whatever it may be, they're not there. You have to go to lenders that are expensive, or that hard money lenders that it's not as good of a deal. And so you don't get access to that capital that quickly, like 5 years. So you have to make it like 5 years before SBA will talk to you. The minimum's 2, but they don't talk to you at 2. They'll look at you and laugh, really. And I mean, I'm sorry. I hate that that's the truth, but that is the truth. And if any of you out there have different experiences, I would love to hear about anything you have to say about getting a loan from the SBA. But if you're buying a business, you could finance it with SBA money, because they're basing it on the assets of the business and the payroll and the revenue that exists there, as opposed to if you're starting up, that's not going to work, right? Because you don't have any revenue, you don't have any payroll. So keep that in mind. The next best reason, and this is a definite pro to buying a business over starting a business, is that you can own it completely without having to get venture capital to grow. Like I was talking about the SBA loan, that's available to you, so you maintain that ownership. So depending on your business model, you may not want to get venture capital. And for the most part, I don't recommend getting venture capital until you absolutely positively need it. People wake up one morning and think this is their solution to their problem, is to get, if only I can get a venture capitalist to get in here, or an angel investor. The problem with that is that they usually want a fairly large stake because of the amount of risk that they're going to take. And that means that you have less ownership and less control of that business. And to me, it's not worth it, because you want to keep and maintain that control of that business for as long as possible, only taking venture capital money until you can't progress without it. Now, I know that's not a popular opinion, and I know that people are going to probably complain about that. But the idea being that the longer you control something, the longer the value you're going to build into it, and the more worth it's going to have. It's going to be harder. I'm not going to lie to you. It is going to be much harder to stave off calling in those venture capitalists to not bail you out, but to give you the capital you need to grow when you think you need it to grow. But at the end of the day, you are going to be so much happier that you sucked it up. You didn't grow, or you didn't start it out too soon, because not only you can get away with less at that point, right? You could sell a 10% stake instead of a 30% stake for that same amount of money. And if you ever have any doubts about this, check out Shark Tank. The most thought out ideas, they'll give you more money for less investment than a company that's kind of doing whatever they're going to do. And just, it's like, it's not as good of an idea, or it hasn't been in play. They don't have enough revenue to support that. So if you doubt what I'm talking about by holding off on venture capital, the ones that don't get venture capital or don't get investors in general are the ones that have a great idea, but they haven't developed it. They haven't put it into effect for revenue and growth, and they're just not there. And so what you're getting is, they'll be like, I'll take, a 50% stake for, $50,000. And you're like, but it's worth this much. No, it's not. And so you really want to pay attention to those valuations and taking a look at your business if you're going that route. Again, this is more about buying versus starting a business. So that was a little bit of a side note, but I wanted you to know that in reference to trying to stay away from venture capital money for as long as possible. I am not saying you should never do it. I'm saying you should wait until you can't build without it. Get the money when it will help you the most. When you've got good revenue and you've built that business and you're going down that road and you're, enjoying your life as an entrepreneur, yay, then that's when you're going to want to do it. I know this can sound funny, when you don't need it, right? When your business is doing great without it, that's when the best time to get a venture capital. Because if someone gives you a crappy deal, you can walk away. It's power. It is power in money right there. If you need it to live, to grow, if you need it, I mean, we're talking like you aren't gonna be in business next week without it. It is a terrible time. Terrible time to get a venture capitalist, because they will see you, a mile away, will give you crappy terms, and you're gonna hate it, and you're gonna probably get screwed. I'm just being honest with you. The last thing you want to do is get screwed. So the best time to get money is when you don't need it. I know that sounds funny. I really, truly do. I'm not, it's like getting a bank loan. They won't give you money when you need it. They'll give it to you when you don't need it, which is really stupid in my opinion, but there it is. You know, if you've gotten value out of this video, please don't forget to hit subscribe and like. And, we go live, like I said at the beginning, every Monday through Friday at 11, except for holidays. Sometimes I have to take time off for my family, but I want you to know that I'm here. Please leave comments if you have any questions. Tell me, what are some things that you've thought of about buying a business versus starting a business? I know that I am not the arbiter of all things knowledge, but, and so please, tune in. I would love it if you ask questions. I'm here to help you. So until next time, we'll talk to you later. Have a great one.